Hi, good evening, class. I was going to go through my model for the evidence-based practice for our last presentation for evidence-based models and implementing evidence-based practices. I chose the Iowa model. The reason I chose the Iowa model, it affects the piloting, implementation, patient engagement, and sustaining a change. And it just really seemed to line up with the PICO question that I was most concerned about. Again, more background on the Iowa model would be that it's widely used framework for implementation of evidence-based practice for changes in healthcare and prompting the reevaluation, revision, and validation of the model that you're working on. Plus, I found it really pretty straightforward. My PICO question is related to bariatric surgeries and decreasing visits to the emergency department within the first 30 days post-operatively for dehydration. After bariatric surgeries, gastric sleeves and Roux-en-Y's, typically about 10% of that population ends up going into the emergency department within the first 30 days for IVs for nausea, vomiting, and dehydration. So decreasing those numbers would, of course, immensely help our patients, and it would definitely be a cost saving for them as well to look for evidence-based practices to help reduce their visits in the ED and having to go in for a day or two for IV fluids. So my big question I would ask would be, do patients who have preoperative and postoperative teaching along with hydration tracking sheets to keep track of their own water consumption have less visits to the emergency department within the first 30 days postoperatively for dehydration? I would implement, for part of my Iowa method, a hydration motivation tracking sheet for these patients. I would, for my strategies, have a teaching with them prior to their surgery, going over a sheet that would be handed out to them right after they hit the floors after the PACU, and have them become engaged with starting to keep track of their fluid intake to make them more involved, to actually show them how much they actually are drinking and kind of put it more on them. So also having the teaching, the sheets that they're filling out, and becoming more engaged. And using the Iowa method for this to help reduce dehydration in these patients postoperatively. I like the Iowa model because they ask, first off, why are we doing this? And for my registry on patients, the main questions before even starting a QI project or, evidence-based project is, what's the purpose of this? Like, is this a number one priority? Especially with the bariatric registry, if you're doing any type of implementation of evidence-based practices, you want to know what's the number one issue that's really standing out with these patients. You can't, you're always having to look for one new thing to kind of tweak to make better for your patients and look and see what the fallout is. And typically dehydration is the number one. So with this, it would be formally stating the purpose, enabling a more focused approach to synthesize the body of evidence and showing this is a topic or priority, and then going from there. Because you really aren't going to have your organization aligned with something that really doesn't need to be tweaked or put all this time and energy towards something that isn't a problem. The Iowa model then, of course, asks for you to form a team, and your team may change over time as people come and go, or you evolve and need more people. So your selection of team members requires attention to interprofessional involvement as well as the skill sets needed to incorporate others as needed. Then the Iowa model assembles, appraises, and synthesizes the body of evidence. So you're looking at the data that you have before teaching. And I really like this quote that care definition of patient-centered care is a shift in power out of the hands of those who give the care and into the hands of those who receive it. And I really think this falls in line with my PICO question, with having the patients really start to take ownership in this project for assisting themselves to help prevent dehydration by the teaching, and having them work on the sheets to actually see where they're at as far as their fluid intake for the day. Then you also, of course, have your data after teaching, which is evidence which demonstrates patient engagement can lead to the better health outcomes, and that cost containment must include patients as a core part of the solution. Then, of course, the Iowa model will disseminate results, and sharing these lessons learned externally is also valuable. Then there's discussion and conclusions. And of course, as it states, it is adaptable for novice to expert users, and its usefulness has been demonstrated in a variety of settings. I thought this, like I said, I thought this model was really straightforward and continues to expand on what's considered evidence and how to determine if practice changes are indicated. And then, most importantly, revisions address sustainability of evidence-based changes that improve outcomes. Then you put your evidence to action. Results of the survey conducted for this project have implications for education, and practitioners need knowledge and skills for their evidence-based practices. And these are my references that I utilized for this presentation. And lastly, I just wanted to say, I want to take a moment to say thank you to everyone in class. I really enjoyed reading all of your posts over the last 7 weeks. And you guys stay safe and take care. Have a great evening. Thank you.